Welcome to Building Insights. My name is Quentin Glenn. This is Amy Mareko.
Hello.
And our guest here today is Josh Zilke with Harkins Builders.
Thank you for having me. Excited
Yes.
to be here. And full admission, this is my first ever time being on a podcast. Listen to a lot, but I don't know. It's new for me.
Well, I'd be lying if I didn't say this is my first time hosting a podcast. So Josh is the Vice President of the Southeast region for Harkins Builders, general contractor here out in the Charlotte area. Definitely, branch out a little bit. We've done work before, Josh. We really value our partnership together. So I guess just kind of start off, give us your story. What do you do? What do you guys work on? And, everything like that.
Sure. Happy to. I feel like my brain right now goes to a sales training we recently did where I should actually not say all the things that we do. Instead, we say, we're a general contractor that helps deliver projects on time and under budget. So if you're struggling with any projects that are coming in late or perhaps experiencing delays, let us know how we can help. But Harkins, that's the right way to open up, and invite questions.
Yep.
But Harkins Builders, we're a general contractor based in Maryland. We've got a Philly office. We have a Richmond office, Raleigh, and Charlotte. Those last three are the Southeast that I'm heavily involved in. We build multifamily. We also build commercial and government. My teams are mainly focused on multifamily. That's where we overlap with the flooring pros and have had a number of successful jobs down here in the South. But multifamily, the way we see it, we break that up into different product types and use types. Product types, multifamily could be student housing, senior living, affordable housing, market rate housing, workforce housing. So it's defined by the end user, and we actually track those trends pretty significantly. Right now, just for example, affordable housing is very strong. Market rate housing is dead. So we started looking at what should we be building. Affordable housing is very strong, and then senior living. Banks are very interested in lending in senior living right now in the South. So we define those, we call those the different use types, and then product types of the different buildings, townhomes to these big high rises. We build a little bit of everything, but it's all slightly different and takes different teams. But when we say multifamily, I think it all gets lumped into that, like, oh, you're building apartments. We're like, well, they're all a little bit different,
Exactly.
right? From our point of view. So we build a little bit of everything, but the Southeast is booming right now, so it's a good time to be here. I'm sure you guys feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's so much new construction that's going on out here that, a company like yours and a company like ours definitely has the opportunity, by having the right people and the right mindset in place to take advantage of that growth, right? So, and I like what you just said about, when you let in how you build everything, right? I used to be a recruiter, and, I spent a lot of time telling people, if you're a car salesman, you don't introduce yourself as a car salesman, right? You introduce yourself as, I'm the person who you go to when you need something safe for your family, or you're looking to upgrade in luxury, or, you create your selling points off of that. So I like that a lot. I know that you mentioned you kind of specialize in multifamily. Kind of walk us through, the composition of your team. Like, are you doing everything from designing to, the whole gamut? Yeah. Right.
No. We sometimes feel like we're designers, but we definitely aren't. And I can circle back to kind of my roots and how I got here. But I ended up along the way getting a professional engineer's license, and I don't do any design. I never even bought the stamp, but I got it for a reason. But our team's focused truly on general contracting, right? So we're not designing, we're not the owner, we're not financing it, we don't own any part of it typically. We are there. The way I describe it is we're going to turn 2D plans into a 3D building. We facilitate the process of turning something that doesn't exist into something that exists. I'm a big proponent of saying construction's a service. You're not hiring me because of all the buildings I built. You're hiring me because I'm going to control this chaos over 18 months to 24 months to give you that building that's going to make you money or provide you the facility you need to run your business, right? It might not be revenue producing, but it's controlling that process is what general contracting is. Right. The other way I look at it, contracting, it's in the name. Like we deal with contracts. We're not swinging hammers. It's a lot of paper and process in getting that building built. So my team here, we don't actually put up siding, we don't frame buildings. We have estimators, we have superintendents, and then we have project managers. And the way I kind of see it, those three work in tandem. Estimators should ideally come up with the right number on the building, right? How much should it cost? A PM gets all the paperwork done, that way a superintendent can build the building. And then we've got a slew of superintendents that are out there coordinating the permitting, making sure the framers are framing it right, and then weaving in all the different trades that need to get in there and get their work done. So it's really I think general contracting is just trying to orchestrate chaos, and it's not that the subcontractors aren't capable. I think we have great subcontractors, and I'm thrilled to be here talking with you, and I think you guys are one of them. But it's making sure everybody does everything in the right order. If we just said go out there and build it, right, it's keeping everybody from getting into each other's hair is our end of the deal.
Right.
I feel like we try and reiterate that. Like to owners, it's, hey, we're going to build the building. To subcontractors, it's, we're going to try and make sure that we clear the path for you to get your work done that we're asking you to do.
Directing.
So it's very much we have to help each other out to get there,
Right.
because we're not physically building the building.
Right. Yeah, you're a facilitator.
Exactly.
A facilitator on both sides. To the owner, they have this dream, they have, this idea of what they want, and from our level, from the subcontractor level, you are, like you said, clearing a path, making sure that we have the ability and the way to get our job done, right? And if we can marry those two pieces together, then hopefully you have something beautiful to look at when everything's done.
Agreed.
Yeah.
No, definitely agreed. I think I've been kicking around this theory in my head. We propose a lot to owners on these different projects, and recently we've been on a pretty good streak of winning things. And so I was trying to look at, why are we winning, or what is it we're saying that's winning work? Because up front, it's all, what have you built in the past, and what can you do for me now?
Right.
And I've kind of boiled it down to three different things on the sales tactic approach. You have pre-construction, you have low bidders, and then you have being a good builder. So I think when you're pitching to a client, you're pitching those three things. It's, I understand up front how to get this building to budget, and I also understand the design parameters. I can work with your design team. We can make this thing happen, right? That's a service that you're selling. That has nothing to do with, can I bid it and be the cheapest, or do I actually know how to build this building? So I've been trying to tell owners, look at those three across everybody who's out here. Does that person know how to manage this design process? Or are they the lowest bidder? If they're the lowest bidder, are they a good builder?
Right.
And the three, like I said, nothing to do with each other. So I think what's really, what we've been telling owners, like, ask for our reputation on the, the design upfront approach, and then look at how we bid. And like, we don't want to hide any of that information, and then go let our building track record speak for itself. But weigh all three of those. Don't just pick like that low number. And I think that's really resonated. We've seen a lot of developers say like, oh, wow, you're right. We need somebody who's actually going to manage this design, and then we'll figure out how to make the number work. But effective design management yields a lower number. So I think it's all intertwined, but I've really been stewing on that as we think about our role as a general contractor, is how are we actually adding value, or how are we helping a developer? And I'd like to think our innovation recently has been just being as developer focused as we can, truly trying to help them see it from their angle.
Well, and that's the same thing, in my opinion, on the subcontractor side, right? And I'm sure you've noticed this too, but it's almost like there's a race to the bottom in terms of pricing. It's like, I'm only going to get the job if I'm the cheapest, right? When in actuality, and we were talking just before we went live here, of owners value different things, right? It's not always about the cheapest number up front. Like, sure, that matters, but at the end of the day, are you going to do it on time? Are you going to, are there going to be problems in 2 years?
Are you going to communicate during the process?
Right. And I think that, being selective with the people, when you're making that decision, like who you choose to work with for your trades, and, who we choose to work with our clients, that selection process is paramount to anybody's success.
Yep.
So, have you noticed anything in terms of like ownership, or, the people who are contracting with you to get these, get these projects done. Have you noticed any trends with them or any like current stuff? I mean, obviously you've been in the industry for, years now. Anything over the course of the last 2 years, 3 years that is surprising to you? Anything that's, kind of come across as, the new wave?
Yeah. I think touching back on that note of innovation, I think the Carolinas as a market, I've got a couple of thoughts here, but the Carolinas as a market, when I started working down here, was seen as an unsophisticated contracting market. And what I mean by that is just, it's good old boys. It's here's the number. We're going to build the job. It's going to be great. But there's just not a lot of understanding. And I think as more developers have pushed south, a developer and I were joking. We call it like the Sun Valley ride. Like it's, the Sun Belt's just really on this tear, and it has been for 10 or 15 years. But the wave now is more developers out of the north pushing south. It's a different market there, and there's a different level of sophistication. So what we've seen is as they come down here, the contractors that are doing well are those that understand what those clients want, that level of sophistication. So I think there's multiple kind of trends there that we're seeing. We're seeing more and more developers headed south, and now talking with lenders, we're seeing the Southeast is one of the few places developers are willing to lend, which necessitates more sophisticated general contractors, which is how I think we've really tried to grow
and level up there.
Exactly. So I think that's a huge opportunity. I think the product types, kind of back to that discussion, I mentioned senior living. That has just blown up. It's incredible seeing how many senior living jobs are there. Before we hopped on the mics here, we were talking about Asheville. Driving around, the number of senior living facilities in Asheville that are going up, it's insane. It's mind-boggling. Yeah. I think 2/3 of the jobs we saw yesterday under construction, there's thousands of senior living units.
Yeah.
And I think people actually want to move there and live there. Like I don't think it's a bubble. I think it's true demand. So I think that's another trend I'm seeing. Have you guys seen something similar?
Yeah, I mean that senior living piece is wild to me. Like 15, 20 years ago, that segment of the industry, I mean, hardly existed, right? I mean, you had
Maybe
your communities.
In Florida.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right.
You
You had your communities and everything like that, but we're getting asked to bid on a lot of those projects, and in our trade, that those projects are really appealing to us, right? Because it's it's a lot of material, it's a big size, it's a lot of the same type of plans. You go in there, you find the right sub to do it. Cookie cutter, just knock out 150 units. Get on your way. But the rise in multifamily has been pretty steep as well, right? I mean, when I was a kid, it was always preached like home ownership, like go buy a house as quickly as you can. And I'm in my mid 30s right now. I don't own a house. I rent. And I think for as prices go up, as inflation goes up, as rates continue to to stay at high levels, those types of multifamily type of living situations are really appealing for a lot of reasons.
The amenity centers, the fitness, all of that. It's all in one.
The pools. I tell you, that's the funniest thing to me right now is all the employees we have that are, under 27. They all rent, not interested in owning homes. And then on the weekends, they're like, what pool did you go to this weekend? And it's like a little social ladder. It's really funny to see.
They have grills out, everything. It's crazy.
But these high rises in uptown Charlotte with, 20-story viewing or amenity decks, that's where people want to be.
Yeah.
Like that's where I want to be if I wasn't chasing kids around, right?
Yeah, seriously.
I was living in Phoenix, this is probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and I lived in a high-rise downtown Phoenix, 15th floor, and you're right, like that's where I wanted to be. Like I had a rooftop pool. I had a nicer gym than any gym that I could pay for.
Yeah.
Right. And but again, it's it's just the way that the world is moving, and I'm curious. Like I don't see that as 20 years down the line as necessarily being the same. But I mean, you're obviously boots on the ground. Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think from a selfish point of view of having plenty of work, I'm like, everybody should keep renting.
Yeah.
I think demographically things will change. The BTR product type townhomes. I think that's the next wave, and I think a lot of people believe that because it's the 20-somethings are going to turn 30 and get a dog, and then say I want to move in with my partner and we want to grill on our own backyard, not the pool deck anymore. And by the way, we just got an Audi and we want to park it in a garage.
Right.
So the townhome is the perfect product. So I think we're going to see a shift that way. I also feel like there's been a trend that this amenity, I've heard it called the amenity arms race. That's kind of over. For a while it was the luxury gyms and let's put more in there. And then when work from home happened, everybody switched and they're like, we need more co-working and community space. So we started seeing a shift, or people wanted second bedrooms. So the buildings themselves, all of a sudden 1 bedrooms weren't desirable. People wanted 1 plus an office or 1 plus a den. So building types changed. Popularity of older buildings kind of drops off.
Yeah.
People don't want the amenities or don't want specific amenities. And I think that when you just stand back and look at it, I think every apartment developer is always reinventing themselves, creating the next desirable thing. Right. I think that'll keep happening, but I think rental demand is going to stay.
Yeah.
I just don't see a lot of people rushing out to buy homes.
Especially if you're liking being closer to the city. Most times the homes are going to be a little bit more out. Like that younger crowd, they like the South End and Loso and all of that, and most of that stuff is closer to uptown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I definitely think it's here to stay. I mean, and that's been the backbone. I think, running counter to that, we see affordable housing is always in demand. So they all kind of, these little cycles of different product types, but right now affordable's up, senior living's up. We'll start to see, I think BTR is up. And in case anyone doesn't know, that's build for rent or build to rent. So I think we'll see, continued cyclical trends here. But in general, multifamily's always been fairly stable. It'll drop off and come back.
We've done a lot of the build to rent work as well. I mean, and those houses are just going up like crazy. I mean, we're in two states doing that, and we've done about 1,000 homes over the past year.
Wow.
Right. And I mean, it's not an insignificant amount, and they're good. I mean, good clients to work for, and they can't keep them on the shelves.
Yeah.
Like they're
that.
rented out before it's even done. But
yeah.
Back to you and your company, like, one of the things that we've been really focusing in on is choosing the right type of business, right? I made a joke to Austin, one of our employees a couple of weeks ago, that if you have 2 shoes on your feet and you go ask to bid on somebody's work, they're going to let you bid on their work, right? But you have to, you got to be selective with your time and with your resources. Are you choosing the right things to bid on? How do you guys go about, selecting the right projects, or aligning with the right owners, or, things like that?
Yeah, I think we kind of break it down, and there's 2 layers. There's the strategic, and then there's kind of the tactical operational level. At the strategic level, we look at what are these big trends, right? We need to chase senior living. We don't think market rate's going to happen. So we try and look at what do we think just naturally would be the right direction to head? Which way is this ship going to sail? And then at a more operational level, it's a lot of gut feel, but then we also try and use like a go, no-go matrix system. From the gut feel side, I think construction, I'm probably going to say this 10 times during this podcast, it's relational, right? It is, do I like the person sitting on the other side of the table? Do I have a gut feel that we are mutually aligned? And I think so much of it is that. And I've learned to trust my gut. When you sit down and you get the heebie-jeebies meeting somebody, just don't even entertain it, right? There's people that you're going to meet and you're like, I need to work for that guy or work with that guy. And that, that's the sort of client that it's like, we're going to chase that. So tying it back to strategic, at the start of every year, we try and come up with who are the target clients that like we met and we have no opportunities with. We need to find a way to get in there. And then we're going to say yes. Like that's rather than accepting the invite from anybody, let's go chase the ones we want to go build for and build that relationship. And I think that's been successful is you build the relationship first. At some point, the work will come. There's one story I want to share that is a huge point of pride for me that I met a local developer here, and I'm going to leave his name unsaid, but I actually met him through NAOP. There was a mentoring program, and I met him, I was fresh to Charlotte. I'd been here 2 months, and I'm like, hey, you develop apartments, is there any way I could ever work for you? And he gave me some pointers, but he's like, I don't know, let's see. Well, flash forward 5 years, there ends up being an introduction on a project, and he ended up letting us build it. He never bid it out. It was a negotiation, and building for him was an awesome experience. But I was like, we've worked so hard, and he's somebody I don't want to let down. And at one point I had to call him about a tough conversation, and he said, I'm gonna sign the change order, deal with this delay or whatever it was. He's like, but I'm disappointed. And I was like, that actually hit me. Like, I don't want you to be disappointed. I like working with you. Job was super successful, going to the grand opening. It was just such a personal point of achievement to be like, I wanted to build a building for this guy and show him we knew how to do it. And we got the opportunity, and I think we did a great job. Like, that is rewarding. And I think that's the satisfaction that all the headaches and the late nights and sleepless nights, trying to figure out how to get these buildings built. That's the reward that you get, is like somebody that's happy that you're happy that you got to work with.
And I think one of the things that a lot of people don't, again, my experience is from sales side of things, right? And that relationship piece that you're talking about, especially in the construction industry, that manifests itself over years, right? Like, you're not going to get that quick close. You're not going to get that, and anybody who you meet and is willing to just fork it over to you immediately, like, that should be the gut feeling for your, like, do you really want to work with me right now? You know what I mean? Like, but no, I like what you said there. Now you mentioned, having some tough conversations, and I think that's one of the pieces that really builds the relationship that you're talking about, right? Avoidance of tough conversations, creates a lack of credibility, and now what are your takes on that? Because we're a client of yours, right?
Yeah. I've got a lot of thoughts on this. I feel like this is most of what I spend my time on, is trying to navigate those tougher conversations. I think when it boils down to relationships, number one, you need the relationship in place. No different than parenting. The relationship comes before rules, right? You need the relationship. That way, when there is conflict, there's a setting in which to support it. So we try and make sure we know everyone we work with, we have a relationship with them. So I think that's like setting the table. I think there's two other things that I really try and do before a tough conversation. One is prepare, and I think the delivery of a argument has to be so clear, or not an argument, but a statement or a here's our point, our dispute. It has to be so clear that anyone can understand it. So I try and refine, and it's let's dry run this. Let me see, and I'll use different people in my office that have no understanding of the topic, and I think my admin Kathleen probably takes the brunt of this, but I'll run ideas by her. Hey, what do you think about this? Or my wife does it sometimes, and it's like, if they don't understand it like that, I'm not making the case logical.
Right.
So I think the prep and the simplification are huge. The other tool that I try and use when I'm walking somebody through it is like a third-party story. So recently we were talking about power delays with an owner on a job that we were both on. And rather than ask them how they felt about the power delay, we walked the building together, and I brought up another project that was experiencing power delays and used that third-party story to say, here's what went on there. The owner had this position. That doesn't make sense to me. Why do you think that is? And then he starts explaining his whole logic without it ever being confrontational, because he's giving an opinion about somebody else's project.
Right.
But then now I know his side
stance,
of it. So I think between the prep and the simplification, and then just trying to get down to understanding somebody and using those third-party stories, the final bit of it, I think, is just being blunt, right? The cards on the table. The word I keep using is candid. If you're not able to be candid with somebody, the relationship's not there. The candid conversation is what allows you to effectively decision make. Yeah. Do you feel similarly about candid conversations?
Oh, 100%. I think if you're not able to have them, then there's a problem. Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. There's a problem with the relationship, right? If I don't feel comfortable giving you a call and saying, "Hey, Josh, there's a big problem with this LVP out at this particular project, and you have to go out and find out about it, that's a failure to me, right? And I like what you said about humanizing the story in a different way, like providing examples and things like that. I think that's a useful tool and something I haven't really considered or employed that often. Like my thoughts are usually just like, I'm going to give it to you straight because I know that integrity is a cornerstone for any relationship. And if you like it, great. If you don't like the news that I'm delivering to you, like, I just have to trust that I built that relationship up to this point, that you have faith in me that I'm going to get it taken care of, right? I'll give you a call and say, hey, Josh, this is the problem. I don't know how to fix it yet, but I promise that, my team's on it, this person's working on this, and I will get you an answer. And then for me, it's all about that consistent follow-up. We had another client, and there was an issue. Every trade got backed up for some particular reason, and we're the flooring guys, so we're usually the last ones in there. So like we just got backlogged with all of it, right? And the project manager in charge of all the project managers for this, he gives me a call and chews us out. Right. It's like, here's the problem. You guys aren't doing this and this and this. And what I told him and what I think was the real value add to him was, I absorbed what he said. Right. I repeated it back to him and, so that he knew I comprehended it. Right. I, took it, changed it a little bit. All right. I got you.
Here's what I heard.
And then I'm a big proponent of setting follow-up expectations. Like, Amy's been in 100 meetings with me. As we start a meeting, every time I'm saying, here's what I'm trying to accomplish in this meeting. And as I'm finishing a meeting, this is what I want everybody to walk away with and what I want everybody to do. So when I'm ending that conversation with this guy, and he, again, just colorful language, not happy. I told him, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to call you here, here, and here at every point. And just basically giving myself checkpoints. Yeah. Right? Making that big goal of what the problem ultimately was, breaking it down to smaller ones. So when I called him the first time, he knew I hit a milestone. When I called him the second time, knew I hit a milestone.
Building trust.
Right. And then by the time I got to that third one, he's invited me out to golf, right? Like, and it's, again, like, that's that relationship piece that you ultimately try to get to. But if you just take it and turn around to your team and say, hey, we're just got to work this hard, and then it's just never gonna happen, right? So
no, I agree. I think it's tough. Organizations are interesting that it's made up of a bunch of different people with a bunch of different personalities and styles and beliefs. What I've found, I agree with everything you just said. I think a lot of people would agree with that. In an organization, though, not everybody will do that, right? So it's trying to learn how to balance letting somebody try their own way versus telling them what to do. But organizational trust, I think, is tough to develop,
right?
Especially as you transfer between markets. That's some of the lessons I've been learning now, overseeing multiple offices. A reputation in one market does not open a door in a different market, and it takes time to build trust and reputation and clients in all these different markets. So growth is difficult, and I just think relationships and trust are the basis of that, and getting an organization fully on board with the relationship piece is what makes companies successful.
100%.
For sure.
And I think, I'm sure it's the same way, in your line. The trust can be a good conduit for you to go get that big client that you're after, right? But it's not going to seal the deal. Yeah. Right? You're still going to have, it could open the door a little bit, but it's not going to get you to the finish line. But I'm curious because I have a little brother, right? And he's got the real estate experience. He's worked for new builds and things like that. What would you say to somebody who's trying to get into this industry, like trying to break into this industry? He's got aspirations for it, and I'd love to see him do it someday. But the barrier of entry, is it high? Is it low? Like, what would you suggest on something like that?
Yeah, I'm gonna, like I said I would do, I'm gonna tie it back to relationships. At some point, I think you have to figure out, to be successful in this industry, how do you get to the point where your relationships are the guiding compass for your career? Some people, I think, see that very quickly. Some people don't. I think construction, you sort of had those three main paths: estimating, project management, being a superintendent. I don't think you have to go through all of those. I think it's the person that understands construction as a business is the one that I think gets ahead a little bit quicker. We don't recruit just construction guys. There's a lot of people that are like, I want to be a superintendent. It's like, that's awesome. We need that. You can go very far with that. It's great. But I think the open-minded approach of how does this business actually make money? What are we doing that makes money? Where are we adding value? How are we winning? It's that strategy that I think really helps people. Some people develop that as a lead super. They develop strong subcontractor relationships, and those really carry them. And then they have owners that say, I'm not doing this next deal unless, John is on it. Or, from a PM side, it's you start to develop, robust client relationships. Or on the pre-con side, you can do that as well. I think it's really get in, understand the business. There's so many people that I talk to who are like, how do we actually win work, or what's why are we called a general contractor? And it's those underlying, I think, or underpinnings of our industry. You have to kind of understand how the business works. Why do we interact with architects? We're not designing the building. It makes me think of, I do a lot of guest lecturing for different universities, and when you try and go to a freshman level class and you're like, does anybody know what bidding is? And people are like, what? You bid on a job? You're like, yeah. You have to actually submit a number and say, I think I can do the job for this, and then you might get picked. They're like, oh, we thought, you just the number's the number, or it's that concept.
If it was
so
only
foreign.
that easy.
Yeah, right.
I know.
Oh man.
So I feel like it's you just start at this. Construction is such a strange and archaic industry. You have to just figure it out. I don't know if that at all answers the question for
sure.
your little brother, but I feel like
sense.
it's find your way of what you understand and how do you get it to the point where relationships matter.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's cool. How do you guys go about selecting people? I know you have your three main buckets. You got estimators, you got your PMs, you got your site supers. What do you look for as far as personality characteristics or work experience or things like that to build on your team?
Yeah. It's an interesting question. I would start that by saying our team is largely younger employees. We don't have an incredible amount of the 50-year superintendents. I don't think we have any, to be honest. We have a lot of young, ambitious people. So I think ambition is the first thing. Communication is another one. A personal trait that I am completely sold on is ownership. And I think you need someone in any situation to champion something. It kind of ties back to what you were saying with the follow-ups, the 3 follow-ups and building trust. But if somebody doesn't have the ability to say, I'm going to do something, and then show me that they do it, or say, I don't care what the cost or what the time commitment, I'm going to accomplish X, that I think is the what distinguishes the cream from the milk. It's that is what we are looking for. So I think communication's a piece of it. I think ambition's a piece of it, but taking ownership of something, in my mind, is the whether success or failure, that is the defining characteristic.
Yeah, I was going to say even the ownership part, then taking accountability if something doesn't go perfectly, or maybe I set a deadline and I'm a little bit off that deadline. Okay, I'm taking ownership of accountability on my end that I didn't follow through with that. So I think that ties into that as well.
Well, and timing is such a vehicle for success or failure in this industry.
100%.
If you're not doing it quick enough, or you're you're doing it too slow, it'll ruin everything. But again, we were just talking before we turned the mics on, when there is a problem, I don't necessarily care about finding what happened to get us here.
Don't assign the blame.
Yeah,
right. It's
right.
that's
Right,
what after the project's for. right? Like,
How to get better.
right.
Yeah.
We need to solve the problem now, right?
Yes.
These guys are worried that, we're 2 boxes of tile short, and guess what? I don't care what the estimate says. I need you to get on the phone with the vendor, and I need you to see how much it's going to cost for me to overnight this tile from China, right?
Yeah.
But no, that's good, and we work similarly over there. Like, I mean, our values are, integrity, accountability, and customer obsession. Like, if you,
That's a good way to put it. I like that.
if you could put your thumbprint on, your work, and for better or for worse, like, that is what you've done, and you'll stand by it, and the integrity side, you're putting the best foot forward. We just want you to be obsessed with what you do, right? Outside of that, like, we can teach the skills, right? Like, we're hiring for an estimator right now, and I'm going back and forth. Like, do I hire the guy who's been doing it for 15, 20 years? I know he knows how to do it. Or this kid has not stopped following up with me since I viewed their resume on Indeed. I got 7 emails
there.
from him.
Yeah.
It's like, what, and part of me is like, I'd like to not have to worry about 15, 20 years. Like, you're going to get my estimates out. But the other part of me is like, I can turn this person into a monster.
Mold it exactly how you want,
Right. So that's interesting because, when I was growing up, you said like the 50-year site supers, like my dad was in construction. Like, that's who it was. Like, the site super was a, 60, 70-year-old man, mustache always. Yeah. And just, but now, like, I mean, you got some guys out on some of your projects. Like, I'm like, man, like, you late for school right now?
Yeah. You missed the bus.
No, but your guys are
the
awesome.
lead guys are definitely a little bit more. Quick shameless plug for Harkins. Our core values. It's DISCO is the acronym we came up with. So we didn't start there. As we arranged the letters, we came up with DISCO. But discipline, innovation, stewardship, communication, and ownership. Yeah. And I think those 5 so well exhibit what we need in this industry. To your point about customer obsession, I've got a personal anecdote that I've struggled with that balance of, like, work obsession, passion. And I remember when I was attending grad school, so we haven't talked about my past, but I've gone to college way too many times. So I've done grad school twice and I did undergrad twice. But in my first stint in grad school, the opening, like, it's like the first day of class, right? And we have a speaker, keynote speaker come out, and they're addressing us, this big rah-rah speech. And this woman stood up there and she said, if you don't have a job that you go to bed thinking about, you wake up thinking about, you're not passionate. And for a long time, I bought into that. I was like, man, I need something. And I remember, like, getting married, being on my honeymoon, and thinking, like, man, I'd love to be cranking out some business right now, or, like, you're just always thinking about it until you hit that critical mass where you're like, I have more than I need of work thoughts, and then you go the other way of, like, do I need less? So I think there's some nirvana in there somewhere, that there's a balance. I'm now a firm believer that I should not be thinking about work at night. At some point, you just say, you know what, the day is done. Let's turn it off. And I think it's, I actually have a mental test that I've got little kids, I've got 3 daughters. If I cannot spend time in the pool with those 3 kids and not think about work, I have too much on my brain. And I think it clouds your management ability. It clouds your good decision making and business. So that's my barometer. If I can go to the pool for 2 hours and just be present with my kids, I'm like, we're in a good spot. Maybe I should take on a little more, but anytime I'm sitting here worried about stuff while I'm watching my kids jump off the diving board, that's when I'm like, okay, the passion is a little too hot, or the workload. So I don't know. I bought into that for a long time, but I'm just such a proponent of, you have to like what you're doing. It has to fit with your life. But when all those click, you can be customer obsessed, right? You can chase. You can enjoy the chase. You have fun when it's a grind. Like, that's the sweet spot to be in, right?
100%.
I love that.
Yeah, it's the pool test.
The pool test.
The pool test.
Yeah. Patent pending.
Yeah.
That's, the owner of our company, always preaches this to us, but it's exactly what you're talking about, and it's true as could be. If you don't like what you do, and if home life is not where you want it to be, and your health is not where you want, any one of those three off kilter, it just doesn't matter. Like, you can't be your best self. You can't be your best home self when work is chaotic.
Yeah.
When home is chaotic, you can't be your best work self. When your health is chaotic, you can't be the best family man that you want to be. And I like the pool test because I do something similar. My son's 2, so I go home and he's obsessed with Play-Doh. Right? So I come here and I'm trying to figure out how to get some box of tile from China at 2:30 in the afternoon, and this, that, and the other, and then it's like he doesn't care what I just ran through. He wants to go play with his Play-Doh, right? And if I can't sit down with him and watch him try and eat it and do whatever kids then I know I'm overloaded. Right? And it's like, okay, I got to take a step back, or maybe I need to leave early and go to the gym, and that kind of thing. But no, that's cool. The pool test.
Yeah, sounds like your son's going to be a little contractor there, playing with Play-Doh. Yeah, he's building things.
He's also obsessed with the magnetiles. Have you seen those?
Yes.
My nephew
man,
is, yeah.
I say I'm a little more obsessed with it than he is.
We had a stage for like 4 months. It's funny how kids' stages come and go. But every night my daughter would say, she would call it an uptown because we live in Charlotte, right? So they're not high rises, they're uptowns. So every night we would build an uptown. And then one day that stage was over. But it was like an incredible stage of like, can we actually build it taller than we did yesterday?
Yeah,
like, how do we, it's like Jenga, you're pulling pieces out, trying to optimize the structure.
That's so
fun.
cool.
Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe my youngest will pick that up again.
Yeah.
We'll be building uptowns.
Oh,
so.
that's really cute.
Yeah. I had to promise my 6-year-old a tower crane. In the next 5 years, she was like, Dad, I want to see you build something with a tower crane. I want to go up it. So
nice.
We'll see. We'll see if I take her up it.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to brave climbing one. Once they start racking, it just makes me too nervous.
Let her look at it from afar.
Exactly.
Get her a hard hat.
Exactly. But we'll get one.
That's funny.
Awesome.
What do you think? Again, if you were to give advice to your 25-year-old self, wanting to get into this career path that you're in, and trying to be successful in the construction industry, what do you wish you would have known back then?
Yeah, I think kind of tying back to my history of where I came, and maybe I'll start there. Don't really have a family history in construction. I walked into a seminar. I was in engineering school, and it was a construction seminar, and I thought, I'll give that a whirl. And then proceeded to try and find my place in the world. I had all these internships, really couldn't figure out what I liked. I tried construction consulting, didn't fit there. At some point I landed in estimating. And it was a mentor of mine was like, hey, you should try multifamily apartments. I'm going to recommend you to the president of this company. And they hired me immediately for estimating. They were like, oh, you're a consultant? It's kind of like estimating. Just here you go. And so I hunkered down and did estimates for 4 years. Just kind of grind it out, sit at a computer. You're not meeting with people. You're just there. And it took me a long time to like see the bigger picture of where is this going? Where could it go? I think I sort of got lost, tying it back to the passion idea. I was like, what am I doing here? Like some days it's great. Like I don't talk to people. I just sit here. But then other days I'm like craving interaction and decision making, and just trying to see my own path wasn't there. I now tell everybody, you need to carve your own path. So if you flash forward to kind of where we are now, along the way, I got my professional engineer's license. Nobody does that in contracting. I did it because I interact with designers a lot. I got my general contracting license. I went back to grad school and got a real estate degree to better understand clients. So none of those matter to anybody except me. But I started realizing I had to carve my own path. And it doesn't make sense to other people. And some people are like, you're just a career academic. And I'm like, well, no. And I can't be anymore because my wife told me by the time we had our third kid, I was not allowed to go back to school.
That's so funny.
But carving your own path and having your own target and vision, I think is is the best advice I give people. Where do you want to go with this? Do you like interacting with people? If not, don't shoot for that objective, right? But I honestly feel like for 4 years I just hunkered down, and I was learning things and picking things up, but it wasn't directed. And now I don't think there's a day that goes by that I'm not setting a goal, strategic or operational, of here's where we're going. And then the most rewarding thing I feel as a manager, and then we can get back to the advice, but as a manager, seeing other people start to set their own directives and say, we're going to go do this, like, that's awesome. I want to see more of that. So I feel like it all fits together. The carve your path is the carve your own path. Don't let me tell you what I think you should do. Tell me what you think you should do. I feel like that is the best advice. But it takes long-term perspective, and as a 25-year-old, it's so tough to see that.
For sure.
And I feel like you have to have a little taste of success in there to really start to want more of it.
I love that.
Got to be hungry for the knowledge. I mean, no 22, 25-year-old kid knows what they want to do with their life. And if they do, by the time they're 35, it's going to be wildly different. Right? But you just got to put the reps in and make sure that, you have a goal. Again, going back to my brother, and I'm sure he'll watch this, so hi, Hayden. I talk to him a lot about goals. And, he's 23 years old, trying to figure his life out. And, he said, we're talking about money. And, it's like, I want to make more money. I want to drive a nicer car, right? What I challenge him with is, the way you get there, like, you just have to be specific. Like, you have to know, like, okay, if your goal is truly the car, first of all, that's probably the wrong goal for you to have. But let's pretend that it's right. You need to envision that. What color is it, right? What the make, model, year, who's riding in the front seat with you, right? Like, be as specific as you can, because then all the decisions that you make work towards that, right? And it's the same thing in your career, right? Like, I got lined up with the flooring pros. I'd opened my own company, and I thought the world was great, but I hit a point where I achieved what I wanted to achieve, and then I knew that I didn't have, I needed to acquire more skills, right? I'm like, I need to go and learn. I need to go and, let me go find myself a mentor. And that's the big thing that I think a lot of the younger generation really should take a hard look at is, find somebody who you're comfortable learning from, who's doing what you want to be doing, and that will breed your success, and it'll open your eyes to a lot of different vantage points that, as a young professional, you just don't have.
Fully agree.
Yep.
I think I can't believe I didn't say mentorship there. I am such a strong proponent of mentors, and I try and encourage everybody. Every company has a mentorship program, but I tell everybody, carve your path. Go find somebody who doesn't work here that you would like to listen to, right? And go run things by them. My wife listens to all of my career gripes along the way. She at points has told me, like, hey, it's time for a new mentor. Like, you seem like you're stuck. It's time. So recently she did that. This mentor had me taking, the emotional intelligence tests and personality tests and reviewing them. He had me send, examples of daily communication. We went through scheduling, just all sorts of things. And when you have somebody that's that close and you're actually looking for input, they will reveal so much about what you're doing well, what you're not. And in my personal career growth, I try and share this with everybody in my team. I've had, I think, 4 formal mentors. All of them were through my Virginia Tech alumni network, and I've made 3 career moves or 3 company changes in my career. They were all to go work for a mentor, one of those guys. It worked that you develop a relationship, either work for them or they provided the intro, that you're not just going and applying to jobs. Somebody says, hey, I need you. You've got this skill set. Can you fall in here? It's all about networking. But the mentorship, when you find the right mentor, just the benefits that come with that, it's incredible.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
It's tough to get people to embrace that, though. I feel like, if you told your brother right now, like, hey, we're talking, but go find a mentor, like, that would push him along, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So much.
And, like, how do you start that conversation? Like, hey, you want to be my mentor? You know, like, or is it something that's just like an organically?
So, for me and Jason, I was in the midst of growing my business, and I was knocking on doors basically, right? I'm like, hey, I want to do recruiting services for you. I want to do, and I got connected with him through another person that I had been pitching for months and for months and for months. And I think what happened to me is, like, I started working with Jason, and he started to give me nuggets, right? To where, we would hang up the phone, and we were talking every day. I would hang up the phone, and what he said would stick with me for, days.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, I never thought about it this way. I never thought about it this way. And then as soon as I started to get a taste for that, I started to push that agenda, right? Like, I wanted to see how much I could get, right? And then it became like, this guy's not my client at my business anymore. Like, I need to learn from this person,
So
right?
it happened organically. I love that.
Yeah, and I didn't ever ask him, like, hey, will you be my mentor, right? I think as soon as I moved out here and I said, you're my mentor, he moved out to Arizona, and he's like, yeah, I'm out of here, bro.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, I don't know what your experience with it. I mean, do you like ask him directly, or?
I've had a couple different ones. One happened organically, where, like, I met a guy at a dinner and we just hit it off, and then we stayed in touch, and as I kind of hit issues, I'd run it by him. I would say that when I talked about kind of, just keeping my head down, I really lacked direction. I also did not actively have a mentor in that period of time. Circling back, how I ended up at Harkins was through a mentor. I was wrapping up my grad degree in real estate, and I was considering leaving construction, going to development. Had 2 job offers. I was weighing out. I was just trying to come up with who could I call to just get a third-party opinion. And I called the COO of Harkins, who I met through Virginia Tech. And I was like, never talked to this guy in my life. Or I talked to him a few times, but never at a personal level. I just shot him an email. I was like, hey, I've got some personal stuff I'd like to talk about. Are you available? And sure enough, he called me 5 minutes later, and we talked for an hour and a half.
I love
and
that.
he convinced me to not leave my job. And then he was like, hey, if you ever want to come run a division for Harkins. And I was like, that's not on the table. And then sure enough, it happened. But the vulnerability of, like, hey, I could use some advice. He was more than willing to give his time. And then we worked great together for a number of years before he retired. It was true mentorship. And when he retired is when my wife told me, like, you need to go find somebody else to help you keep growing. That was a little more awkward. There's a guy who runs a $1 billion a year construction company, also a Hokie. And at one point 6 years ago, I met him at a dinner, and my wife was with me, and he said, hey, if there's ever anything I could do for you. My wife's like, hey, you should call him. And he did say that. So just lead in with that. So I called him. I was like, hey, remember that time you said I could call you if I ever needed a favor? I'd like to mentor. And he was like, let's do it, but here's my requirements. And then he sent me, like, his list of, we're doing this. Are you committed? But totally different. I've had some organic ones. That one was awkward, but it worked out great, and it was very structured. I think it's any size fits all, I think I didn't phrase that right, but you need to be bought into it, but however it works out, I just think the benefits are there.
Yeah. Very good.
That's awesome. Well, Josh, I appreciate you coming in today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Pleasure as always. And I think that's a wrap.
Yeah, we did great.
Yeah.
Let's go, guys.